always remember this, Raiders fans, is ultimately Al Davis died so once again your team could thrive. That's the way I looked at it with Bill Wirtz and the Chicago Blackhawks. He died so the team could win some Stanley Cups. So try to take the positive out of it. Because we know the last decade or so of his life, after that 2002 season in particular, Al Davis did so many terrible things that really buried that organization to where they really truly are just starting to climb out of the schmaz of suck that he ultimately put that hex on this organization. And I feel kind of bad for the people of Oakland. It's like everybody can't wait to bail on him. The Warriors want to go to San Francisco, and just when the Oakland Raiders get good, after over a decade of being complete gutter trash as an NFL organization, one of the real laughingstocks of the league, here is a relevant, young, exciting team with one of the best defensive players in the entire league in Khalil Mack, and one of the best young quarterbacks in the league in Derek Carr, and now this team wants to up and go to Las Vegas. That's gotta suck. If you're somebody that loves the Raiders and you live in Oakland, maybe you'll still follow the team, but that's gotta feel bad. And that's gotta suck. And I ultimately wonder how much that specter, that aura, is going to hang over this organization this year. Now, for the Raiders, you had a really, really good season last year. Unfortunately, it got kind of undercut when late in the year Derek Carr broke his leg. Because then you're talking about starting McGlynn, then you're talking about starting Connor Cook in the playoff game, and when you're talking about starting Connor Cook in a playoff game, that's not a place you want to be, period. So a season that held so much potential and so much promise ultimately came up short. But still, a very positive and successful season for this Oakland Raiders organization. After that 2014 draft where you get Khalil Mack round 1, turn around in round 2 and get Derek Carr. Now you're talking about each year you've seen progress and you've seen progression to the point now where you have a lot of people that envision the Raiders being the kings of the AFC West, being one of the teams that could potentially usurp the New England Patriots in the AFC. There are a lot of people that are very hot on the Raiders right now as a potential Super Bowl team. Just a few short years, everything about this organization has changed. This is one of the most exciting teams in the National Football League and one of the best teams in the National Football League, and that's crazy how it works. But at least this team didn't sit on their laurels and just say, hey, 2016, what we did, we bring everybody back and we'll be just fine. They went out and got Jared Cook in free agency, who had some moments for the Green Bay Packers in 2016. He's not great, but he's better than anything they had at tight end. And then you get beast mode Marshawn Lynch to come out of retirement. Now, the Raiders weren't a terrible team running the football last year statistically, but Marshawn Lynch isn't just a numbers guy. Marshawn Lynch is an attitude guy. Marshawn Lynch is an impose his will on other teams guy. Marshawn Lynch is a leader on the field in terms of how he can impact and change games through his talents, through as much as anything else, his force of will. We call him beast mode for a reason. And you look at that move and you wonder if that move is the type of move that takes this team to a different level, helps mask some of the shortcomings this organization still has on the defensive side of the ball, and indeed makes them a real challenger, a real contender to the New England Patriots throne in the AFC. And when you look at this team, there's a lot to like. Offensively, you've got Derek Carr. You know, this is a cat here in a couple of years. We're going to be probably talking about him as an elite quarterback in the NFL. Former second-round pick out of Fresno State. I remember I had a second to third round grade on him, and I just didn't see it at Fresno State. His mechanics were bad. His footwork was terrible. His bowl game against USC, he was atrocious. And now you look 3.5+ years later, and Derek Carr looks like a future top 3, top 5 quarterback in the league. He was an MVP candidate last year. Just crazy how things play out and they work out sometimes. Then offensively, you've got Amari Cooper on one side, Michael Crabtree on the other side. You've got one of the best 1-2 combinations at wide receiver in all of the league. You bring in a guy like Jared Cook into the fold. So now you've got another pass catcher there. Defensively, You have some guys there. Most notably, you have Khalil Mack. You have arguably the best defensive player in the National Football League. Some people might say J.J. Watt, and that's fine. Argument to be made. Some people might say Aaron Donald. Again, that's fine. Argument to be made. But there is no argument to be made that says Khalil Mack isn't in that same elite category. This dude is a beast. He is a freaking monster. He is everything I thought he was coming out of Buffalo, and he has validated me every year as to why I graded him ahead of Jadeveon Clowney in the 2014 NFL Draft. When you got a franchise player on offense like Derek Carr and a franchise player on defense like Khalil Mack, you could do some special things. But this team is not perfect. And as much as there is a reason to get excited about this team, and there is, we can't totally go hog wild yet until we see some of the questions for this team and how they play out. You know, we talk about Marshawn Lynch. Like I said, he's the type of guy that could potentially be a momentum changer, a game changer, a will changer for the Raiders. He could be a real X factor for them. But Marshawn Lynch has also been gone from the game a year, and his last year in the NFL wasn't that great because he had injuries. He missed some time. What type of beast mode are we going to get for the Oakland Raiders? And is he going to be that guy? Or is he going to be a guy that you have to utilize in a role where you limit his touches and limit his carries and therefore limit his effectiveness? That's a big question, and we just don't know at this point. We'll find out, but we don't know right now. Defensively, there are concerns. The Raiders are soft up the middle. Their run defense in particular is not very good. Then you go to their secondary, and I love the way they've tried to address it some with last year's first-round pick, Carl Joseph, who I said in that draft process was like a bowling ball of butcher knives. Then in this year's draft, you spent a first-round pick on Garyon Conley, who is viewed to be fundamentally ready to contribute and play right away because he was fundamentally sound. And then you look at a guy like Obi Melifonwu, this great hybrid type of athlete who I can't wait to see get a chance to show what he could do in the NFL. You got him in round 2. So you have some young athletic talent in that secondary, but it is young talent, and this secondary does have some holes, and I do have some concerns about it. I mean, you're going with a David Amerson, you're going with Sean Smith. I mean, you know, there are questions and concerns there. They have gotten better, but they still have a ways to go. And I think the other major significant question for this team is the pending move down the road to Las Vegas and how the environment is going to be surrounding this organization in that city with the people in that city, knowing that this team is leaving. Are they still going to come out and support this team anyways and enjoy them for the time that they have them left? And say, hey, if these guys do something special, if they could potentially win a Lombardi trophy before they go to Vegas, then I feel like the cycle has been completed. I'll feel good as the circle will be whole. Or are fans going to be pissed off and angry and upset about how things played out? And they're not going to support this team. They're not going to show up. And then the Oakland Raiders, instead of it being the black hole, it's just going to be like a little black pinhole. Because you're going to have a crowd that's maybe a third of what it usually is, or maybe a half of what it usually is. And sometimes you don't know. I remember Houston, when the Oilers were getting ready to move to Tennessee and everybody knew it was coming, that shit got ugly. And that got ugly in a hurry. They're playing in front of 5. And now when I say 5, I mean like 5,000 people. And that was the announced attendance. That doesn't mean that was even the actual live attendance. We don't know how this is going to play out come the regular season for the Raiders. I hope the Raiders fans can appreciate the time for the remaining time they have, maybe put some of the bitterness and feelings aside and say, hey, I want to be a part of potentially something special and go. If they don't want to, I completely and totally understand and will not judge them for that. But ultimately, if you don't, won't you regret it down the road? Hey, you weren't a part of it? That you stayed home. But we don't know how this is going to play out in Oakland. And I know part of the strategy for bringing Marshawn Lynch in, an Oaktown guy, was that he was going to help in that sense. And maybe he could, but maybe he doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of bitterness there and a lot of anger there and on many sides. And I shouldn't have said that. There's a lot of bitterness and anger from Oakland Raiders fans in Oakland because the team is leaving the damn city, and they all know what's coming. But ultimately, I look at this team and I look at their schedule. The schedule makers did them some favors because they got 2 different stretches where they have 3 straight games at home. Weeks 5 through 7, they host Baltimore, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. So 2 straight divisional games at home. Those are 3 games they should win. And weeks 11 through 13, they host New England, host Denver, host the Giants. New England and the Giants should potentially be challenges, especially the New England Patriots. But that Week 11 matchup in particular is going to be fascinating for this Raiders team because you look at that game, and it's going to be a real measuring stick for them. It's going to let the Raiders know just how close they are or just how far away they are. And it will give them a chance to see the Patriots live and prepare for the Patriots live, knowing that they could potentially circle back in January and see these guys again. To me, that is shaping up to potentially be one of the marquee regular season games in the NFL in 2017. And I'm sure I'm not shocking the world when I say that. I'm sure a lot of other people would agree. That could be a monster, and that's going to be in Oakland. If the Raiders can go out and they beat the Patriots in Week 11, that's a major statement. That's saying the Raiders have truly arrived, and Belichick and Brady can't laugh these guys off or dismiss them, because if they do, the Raiders are going to bounce them from the playoffs too. Ultimately, I do think the Raiders are the class of the AFC West. I think they've got, in terms of the teams that matter, the best quarterback in the division in Derek Carr. They have arguably the best defensive player. Some Broncos fans might say Von Miller, and you've got a definite argument there. But I think Khalil Mack is a better all-around player. You've got arguably the best defensive player. You've got potential for beast mode to have a 1,000-yard-plus season. You've got Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree. You've got a young and improving defense. I love a lot about this Raiders team. I don't know if I'm ready to crown their asses just yet, but I do think they are the kings of the AFC West now. Like I've been talking about for a couple of years, where this team and this team and this team are in this position now. The Raiders can be perfectly set up come 2017 and going forward as these teams get older and these quarterbacks go older, they go away. The Raiders, with their young quarterback and their young team, could be poised to rule this division for years to come. And this could be the season that begins all of that. I think they're going 12-4 at least, and I think they're going to win this division by a couple of games. And it'll be fun to see what this team could do come January if Derek Carr is healthy.